This is Garis book readings of my 2 published paper books, written by and read aloud by Prof. Dr. Hugo Garis. Email profhugodegaris@yahoo.com. Website profhugodegaris.wordpress.com. This is chapter 12, entitled Brief Summary of my second book, entitled Multis and Monos, What the Multicultured Can Teach the Monocultured Towards the Creation of a Global State. Chapter 12, Brief Summary. This very short chapter provides a brief summary of the main ideas of this book. It's intended for those people who like to grasp quickly the main ideas of a book before plunging into its details. The ideas are listed numerically below and in topic heading format, so that the structure of the book can be seen at a glance. 1. Monos suffer. 2. From monos to multis. 3. From multis to globans. 4. The Brad Law and Glow Media. 5. From Glow Media to global language. 6. From global language to global culture. 7. From global culture to global state, globa. 8. From global state to global well-being. 9. Globist ideology. 1. Monos suffer. A mono is a monocultured person who has spent his/her life in a single culture. Monos suffer as individuals the limitations of the single culture that programs them. It's possible for millions of people to suffer from the blind, unquestioned customs of their monoculture, being unaware that there are better ways to live, if only they are able to absorb the lessons of the superiorities of other cultures. 2. From monos to multis. A multi is a multicultured person, usually multilingual person, who has lived in more than one culture and hence has a sense of cultural relativity. A multi is able to look at his/her current culture with a cold eye and compare its superiorities and inferiorities relative to the other culture or cultures he/she has lived in. Multis are more cosmopolitan and sophisticated than monos. Multis benefit from being able to throw off the inferiorities of their first culture by absorbing the superior lifestyles, attitudes, ideas, etc. of other cultures. Multis are thus happier in general compared with monos. Monos live in monocultured ignorance and thus suffer unnecessarily. 3. From multis to globans. If a multi benefits from absorbing the superiorities of one other culture into his/her lifestyle, then the same argument can be applied to the idea of absorbing the superiorities of all cultures on the planet. A multi can then become a global, by absorbing only the best features of all the cultures on the whole planet. Of course, this is only possible if that person is exposed to the lifestyles, attitudes, ideas, etc. of those many other cultures. For that to happen, we need a world media. 4. The Brad Law and Glow Media. The term BRAD, B-R-A-D, refers to bit rate annual doubling. The Brad Law says that the number of bits of information that one can pass down state-of-the-art telecommunications channels is doubling roughly every year. It's thought by telecommunications experts that this annual doubling will continue for many years, so that 30 years after the time of writing in this book, the internet will be approximately 1 billion times more powerful. That is, it can transmit 1 billion times more bits per second than the current internet. This will make practical the idea of giving every citizen on the planet all the world's media, that is, all TV programs, radio programs, all the newspapers, magazines, books, etc. that the world produces. With an internet 1 billion times faster than today's, it'll be possible to generate vivid 3D images the size of one's living room, with a resolution almost as good as the real world. This global media source, made possible by the Brad Law, is called Glow Media, short for Global Media. 5. From Glow Media to global language. With the global media, Glow Media, it's highly probable that a global language will develop. A snowball effect will emerge, whereby more programs will appear in the world language as the percentage of people around the world who understand the world language increases. This process will run more or less to saturation. so that all the world's citizens will speak and understand at least two languages, that is, their own local language and the world language, which is almost certain to be English. It's unlikely that the world will bother to learn a second world language. It will be too much effort. 6. From global language to global culture. With billions of people speaking the world language and being exposed to an extremely powerful and seductive glow media with breathtaking 3D image technology, ideas will travel across the planet easily. The best new ideas will be absorbed quickly by billions of people all over the planet. People will understand each other better, and this in turn will lead to the growth of a truly global culture. The traditional them and us mentality will die away as people become more globally culturally homogenized. 7. From global culture to global state. Globa. Once a global culture exists, it will be much easier for countries to merge into a global state, almost certainly in incremental steps. For example, it's quite possible that an extended EU, European Union, or a modified UN, United Nations, could serve as a stepping stone towards the creation of a global state, here called Globa, G-L-O-B-A. Note, however, that there are many other factors pushing towards the creation of a global state besides the growth of a democratic global culture. For example, global business, global transport innovations, for example, the space plane, maglev trains, etc. Mass tourism, greater general wealth, global environmental problems, etc. 8. From global state to global well-being. There are huge advantages to the creation of a global state, the principal one being no more wars. The planet spends hundreds of billions of dollars a year on wasteful arms production and armaments research. With a global state, all that wasted money would be rechanneled into humanitarian pursuits. People could live in a world free of the scourge of war. A global state would promote a global taxation policy, a global resources policy, a global incomes policy, etc., and hence create a much fairer, happier world. A global state could push for the eradication of global poverty and make everyone rich. It could then turn its attention away from economic preoccupations towards the creation of greater happiness levels by concentrating on psychological concerns, for example, marital and friendship compatibility research, etc. 9. Globist ideology. In the light of the above points, those people in favour of seeing the creation of a global state should organise themselves so as to accelerate its birth. These globists ought to develop their ideology, of which this book is a contribution, and then form political groups and later globist political parties promoting the ideology of a global state, Globa. It's likely that the many technological, economic, social and psychological forces pushing towards the creation of a global state will cause it to emerge independently of the globists, but the presence of globist ideology and globist political parties will definitely accelerate the process. This author considers it almost certain, given the rate of change of the factors pushing towards the creation of a global state, that it will occur before the end of this century, and quite possibly by mid-century, at least in a partial form, following the accretion model, in which straggler nations and blocs join a central semi-global state, until there are none left to join it. We would then live in a truly global state. That is the end of chapter 11.